Good evening, everyone. Welcome to EIACP webinar series on life. Today we have with us Vrijulal MV, and today we are celebrating World Environmental Day. So this year World Environmental Day focus on beating plastic pollution. So we celebrate World Environmental Day, which serves as an annual reminder for our collective responsibility to safeguard our planet. And this planet is known as our home. As global community comes together to address the preserving environmental challenges, it is essential to highlight the efforts of the nations such as India, which has embarked on a transformative journey with its comprehensive life program. So this life program aims to integrate spirit of World Environment Day, along with the emphasizing the national commitment for the sustainable development, conservation, well-being, both its citizens as well as the world at large. So India's life program is launched in the year 2021 by the visionary leader, Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Life stands for global, inclusive and friendly to the environment. So with this emphasis, the life program has aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which reflects the India's determination to be the forefront of the global environment movement. So this World Environmental Day tries to emphasize the environmental conservation as well as biodiversity protection. So India is a mega diverse country which recognizes its intrinsic value for the rich natural heritage and aims to preserve for the future generation. This program prioritizes the conservation and restoration of the ecosystem, including forest, wetland, rivers, and coastal areas. So the role of birds in the environment conservation, we consider the birds are known as the best bioindicators, which indicates the ecosystem health. And also they are right to the pollination, and because of these birds, we are able to see along with the various pollinators, we are able to reproduce various plants, and also that we are able, because of birds, we are able to see the transformation of the pollen from one flower to the another, and the birds plays a key role in the seed itself as well as pest control. So birds also provide a benefit of the ecotourism and also various economic benefits to the country. And we have the various enthusiastic nature enthusiasts as well as bird watchers and various tourism development across the world because of the bird habitats, and promoting this bird tourism, which is a sustainable ecotourism as well as provides the livelihood to the nation. So the bird sanctuaries, nature parks, and protected areas provide the livelihood of these local communities. So the preserving the habitats and promoting the environmental education. So in this regard, we are also aligned with the life program along with the environmental day activities. We are conducting this webinar. I wholeheartedly welcome you all to this webinar. And I especially welcome Vijay, who is a very well-known archaeologist, and also who is known as a good traveler, adventurer, as well as photographer who loves the wildlife as well as nature. He is currently a state project coordinator at Center for Environmental Education, and also he was the alumni of IISc for the environmental management course, and he has published many reports. Worth mentioning are identifying the ecological sensitivities for the Bannerman National Park, and along with that, identifying the various bird habitat in and around Bangalore lakes. And he's known as a very good researcher and also nature educator. So he's, as I mentioned earlier, he's a good ornithologist, and also he likes the wildlife biology, and he does his research in ecology and also utilizing the education for the sustainable development. So he's the founder trustee of Harish Foundation, and I wholeheartedly welcome Vrijulal for this webinar, and I hope the participants will get benefited by his vast knowledge on birds as well as the wildlife. So I welcome to you. So with this brief introduction, I request Riju to continue.
Thank you, Bharat. Thank you so much for the introduction. A very good evening to all of you who are streaming in live. So I welcome you all to this particular session. The role of birds in ecosystem conservation. And to begin with, I would like to wish you all a very happy Environment Day. And like Bharat mentioned, this year's theme being Beat Plastic Pollution, I also have a slide on how birds are helping and giving us a message on managing plastics. So I welcome you all once again to this session, and let's dive into the particulars of it. So let's see what are the roles birds play in ecosystem conservation and their healthy sustenance. So first, to understand how birds function in an ecosystem, we need to understand how birds came into existence. So we all know that birds evolved from dinosaurs, but often we forget what type of dinosaurs they evolved from. Because of the Hollywood movies, we always tend to remember them to be very big and man-eating or carnivorous type of dinosaurs. But it is with evidence that we have found out that it is a very small dinosaurs that have been able to evolve into birds that we see today, and not the large ones, because it takes years of evolution that undergoes, and the smaller dinosaurs were able to make changes to themselves in a few hundred years, rather than the larger ones, which would take considerably larger amount of time. So one of the interesting theories here is the evolution of prey and predator. So if you look through the history of ecology, you will see various organisms that have evolved in this particular aspect, like being a prey or a predator, how they have been able to evolve themselves to escape from the predator if it is a prey, and also to hunt the prey if it is a predator. And this is a continuous process that have been evident even today when we are looking at the organisms over a few decades. We will be able to see some small changes in very small organisms, but if it is a larger organisms, it takes much longer. So that is something it's very interesting to read about and to learn about, and also to witness that. Because in birds, when it comes to birds, we have seen a lot of species getting divided into subspecies first, and over the period of a few years or a decade or so, they would be given a status of complete species. So this normally happens when a bird has a wide range of habitat, or a widespread bird, and then the population does not move from a particular habitat. They start evolving very well to the habitat that they are restricted to. And over a period of time, when we compare that same species from that location and a different location, there would be changes in their DNA or their morphology or anything like that. So that is how we have seen that they are a subspecies, and over the time we have also seen that they have become a complete species. So it's a continuous process. So we see birds today, and maybe 100 years later, they would look completely different. So that's the evolution that is happening. So it's an interesting theory how dinosaurs have changed into birds that we see today. And this was discovered in the 1800s when they found a fossil of the Archaeopteryx lithographica. So this was a fossil found in the Europe during the 1800s, late 1800s. And when they found this, that is when they saw that there were feathers, but the bone structures were not like the birds, and it possessed jaws like a dinosaur, but then it did not have a beak, and then it had a tail, a bony tail, basically. So all these things are something that they have lost during the evolutionary process, and they have adapted themselves in a better way to sustain in today's world. So that is how we see the birds today, and they have diversified so much today that we see over 10,000 species of birds. Now they are found all across the globe. You all might be very much aware. So far, there has been a documentation of 10,300 species approximately, and few are already extinct, and some are in dispute, and what is confirmed is about 10,000 species. And like I said a few seconds ago, they are found all across our planet, including the Arctic and the Antarctic, and they are found in terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems, including the oceans and seas. So wherever you travel across the globe, you will be able to see birds there, and they have a particular role in those particular ecosystems if you have the time to observe. So when you start observing, you will see various behaviors of birds. It could be feeding, it could be nesting, it could be migration, it could be courtships, anything as such. So there are different behaviors that we see about birds. And it's quite interesting also because birds vary in size from the 2-centimeter bee hummingbird to 9 feet tall ostrich. So it's a very big diversity that we have, and they all come in different sizes, shapes, and they have different adaptations. They eat different organisms, or they feed in a different manner. So it's very interesting to see these behaviors and how they perform their life functions. Okay, while they are performing these life functions, they also contribute towards the sustenance of ecosystem or healthy being of the ecosystem, because they have been evolved to perform a certain role in that ecosystem by directly performing their life functions. So let us see some of it. Mainly is the feeding aspect, because as a living organisms, there is a lot of requirement of food to survive. So just like any other organism, birds need to eat a lot. And because this is an organism that flies, the requirement of energy is very, very high. So because they have to fly, they need a lot of energy, and to produce that energy, they need to eat a lot. So the metabolism of birds are much faster than other organisms, because they need to eat continuously, and that food has to be converted into energy at the earliest, so that the energy requirement is met for the flying birds. However, if you see the non-flight birds, then their energy requirement is comparatively lower, and also the size of the body matters a lot. So that is a very deep subject altogether to dive into. So maybe another day we can look at it. So today, basic thing that we need to understand is they need to eat a lot of food to meet their energy requirements, and different birds eat different things. So now let us dive a little more deeper into their behaviors, so that we see what kind of role they perform in the ecosystem, which leads to ecosystem conservation. So first thing, even Bharat, while introducing or welcoming you all to the session, he spoke about pollination. So pollination is one important aspect that birds perform, and a lot of birds are nectarivores. So these birds have special adaptations to take nectar from the flowers. So here you can see an example of a sunbird and a myna, which is feeding on the flowers. So one thing I would like to highlight here is that if you have seen different types of flowers, some are very aromatic and some do not have any smell but are brightly colored. So in ecology, we have understood that any flower that produces a lot of fragrance is pollinated by insects, and any flower that is brightly colored and does not have fragrance are normally pollinated by birds or mammals, or sometimes even could be reptiles. So this is one important aspect. So it's very interesting to observe these things in the wild, where you see flowers being very small and the advertisement of the flower being very big. The best example I could give, very commonly seen one in India, is the bougainvillea, which is, of course, an exotic species here. But then if you look closely in the flower, you will see the flower is white and very small, and the advertisement for it comes in different colors, sometimes pink, purple, white, yellow, like that, in different colors. So basically, plants also have understood birds can see bright colors. They have a very good vision, so they try to attract them by waving colors at them. So they come and take the nectar, and while consuming the nectar, they also pollinate the plants. So this is one important function that has happened, and which helps plants produce their next generations. Going further, Bharat also mentioned about the seed dispersal function. These are very general. I mean, if you just search about birds, then you will definitely see all these functions coming up as ecological services. So looking at them closely, we have frugivore birds which consume fruits, and they know how to find fruits in different seasons, which trees to look at. So this is a very important function, because birds are also known as the best farmers of the forest, because they eat a lot of fruits. Like I said, the metabolism is fast, so the fruit is digested much faster, and the seeds are excreted without digesting. So the fruits, by the time they excrete those seeds, they would have traveled a long distance, and that helps in the seed dispersal, and a mixed forest can be created because of the birds. So this is a very important function. Now, why I'm stressing this is a very important function, I'll give you a couple of examples. One is the sandalwood tree, the Indian sandalwood tree. You all know it's a very valuable tree to us human beings also. However, you also know that it's a very expensive tree. So the price of it never comes down because it's very difficult to propagate and cultivate like other species of flora. The main reason being the seeds of this particular species have a coating which needs to be treated by the digestive juices of the birds. So if you just pluck a fruit and take out the seed and put it in a land or a pot, and then you wait, no matter how long you wait, it's not going to germinate because it has the coating and the seed cannot break out that coating easily. So what happens naturally is these frugivore birds consume these fruits, and the outer pulp is digested in their stomach, and the inner seed has the coating, right? So that coating gets treated with their digestive juices, which helps the seed to germinate once they are excreted. So this is one important function that birds play, not just for the sandalwood, but for several species of plants. Without the birds, these species can go extinct. And I have an example for this as well. You all know that the dodo bird has gone extinct, and they lived in the island of Mauritius, which is in the Indian Ocean. So this particular bird, when people arrived, the human beings arrived on this particular island, they saw that these birds, since they had never seen human beings and they were very curious birds, so when we made a lot of noise, they started coming towards us to inspect what is going on. And people those days were traveling with guns, so it was very easy for them to shoot because game birds were a trend during that time. So it was a habit for people to go on hunts. And here there was a place where birds are coming towards people, so it was very easy for them to just shoot down all these birds and eat them. So the more they shot the birds, the more sound it created, and more the birds came in. And finally, until one day when there were no more dodo birds left in the wild. So when this happened, they didn't really think of what is going to happen. But then in the Mauritius Islands, there was also one other tree which was dependent on these birds for their germination, that is Calaveria major. So this particular species of tree was abundant in the island because of these birds. And once these birds became extinct over the years, it was seen that these trees also were not, no new saplings were coming out, and eventually they are also going extinct. So that is when they realized that these two are connected. So similarly, there are several species of plants that are actually connected or have a relationship with the birds, without whom their seeds will not be able to propagate. So it's very important function where they do the seed dispersal and also treat the seed coating and help the plants to germinate. And then biological control of pests is something that is very interesting to observe, how the birds hunt, how they catch the prey, different types of prey, and how they consume them. For example, if you have ever seen a bee eater hunt for a bee or a dragonfly, you would see that it is also, after it catches the insect in the flight, what it does is it brings it to a perching spot like a branch or a wire, and then hits the insect on the branch or the wire until it is dead. And then if it is a bee, it also rubs the bee on the branch to remove the sting and only then swallows. So this is a wonderful thing to observe in the wild. Excuse me. Okay, and similarly, when we all know that a lot of birds hunt for rodents, but different birds consume rodents in a different way. So if you see a kite or a kestrel or a shikara eating a rodent, you would have seen that it's very bloody. They tear the rodent apart and then eat them little by little. However, if you watch a barn owl eat a rodent, it's very interesting to see how they eat, because I've had the opportunity to rescue one, and I witnessed it firsthand at my home when I brought in a rat and released to see how it hunts. So it caught it with its claws, of course. Then after that, how it ate is it just kept biting through the skin and then swallowed the whole rat. So that leaves no wastage at all. So there's no fur or anything that is remaining at that particular time. And after a few hours, when the entire rat flesh and other parts are digested, only the fur and the skeleton is thrown out again through the mouth. So it's like vomiting. So they bring it out on purpose though. And then you can see small pellet like things. Wherever you have a roosting site of barn owls, you will see a lot of pellets fallen down. And if you examine that closely, you will see only fur and bones, nothing else. So this is how clean they can eat a rat. And you know that rodents can cause a lot of diseases, which is very dangerous. So this is one interesting way where owls can actually help in prevention of these diseases. When I talk about prevention of disease, there is also one other bird that I would like to highlight a little later. Next, we will come to the migration of birds. Now, like I said, there is a lot of diversity in birds, and some range in different sizes and shapes, but also in lifestyle. So when it comes to certain birds, they are very solitary. So they live an individual life, and only during the breeding season, they interact with another of the same species. However, there are some which live in a flock. So there can be a big group of like hundreds of birds together of the same species, and sometimes of mixed species. And these birds migrate to far off places. Now, one thing I can say here is that if they did not migrate and they stayed in one particular place, the resources would be exhausted, right? And it would create an imbalance in the ecosystem, and the ecosystem would not be able to function properly. So these birds are migrating, which is controlling the population and bringing the ecosystem into balance, and then they go to the next place and then do the same function there and then move further. So while performing their life activity, they are considerably contributing to the well-being of the ecosystem in maintaining a proper equilibrium in the species, and that will lead to healthy ecosystem. So you would see a lot of migration, and in India, basically migration starts for most of the birds from October, and then they start going back in February. So this is something interesting. Those who are interested in bird watching, when you're observing birds during the winter season here, you will start finding new species. So that's basic new species, I mean, which is normally not available in your area. So that's when you get to know that, okay, these are coming from different areas. If you read about them, you will know where they are coming from and how long they have taken to travel. Couple of slides back, I did mention about preventing diseases. So here is another very efficient contributor towards this cause. That is the vultures and the crows. The crows, I think all of you would have seen when there is a rodent or any other organism that is dead on the road. You will see a lot of crows gather there, and then they are eating off the flesh. So similarly, in the forest, you will see vultures, which perform this function to a great extent. And it's very interesting to see how in a forest so vast, they would be able to find the carcasses very efficiently and then gather there within a few minutes, within a few minutes, they would finish the entire carcass if it's a big flock that comes there, and they would fly away, leaving only the bones to be there. So this is a very important function in the ecosystems, because if the carcasses are lying there, they start to decay and they can transmit a lot of diseases to other organisms, including human beings. Now, I could give examples like these for entire days, but then since we have a shortage of time, we just have a limited time here, we are not going to every species and every adaptations that they have undergone, but let us look at some of them. So when you start observing birds, you will see birds have different types of beaks, and some of the beaks are generalist, so they can perform a variety of functions, or I would say they can eat different types of food. However, others are specialists, so they eat a particular type of food and they do not look at other types of food at all. For example, in insect catching, there are insectivore birds which have the insect catching beaks. So there are different types of insect catching beaks also, depending on what type of habitat they are living in. So some interesting ones are here, which you can see. The surface skimming, which likes to eat the fish, so they control the population of fish. But they don't like to dive into the water, so they fly at the surface of the water, dipping only their lower mandible or the lower beak. That is why you can see in the picture that they have a longer lower beak compared to the upper beak. So any fish that is flying at the surface of the water slides directly into its mouth. And then the mud probing, which uses the beak to search in between the mud if there is any organisms that are hiding there, and they will be able to pull it out and eat them. And coniferous seed eating is very interesting because you know how the coniferous seeds are located inside a pod. They are very difficult to open, so they have a cross beak which they will be able to insert into the pod and then expand the pod so that they have access to the seed. There are a lot of videos available in YouTube. If you're interested, you can definitely go and observe them, and they're very interesting to watch. I would have said you can go and observe in the wild, but then if you're from South India, it's difficult to find coniferous seed-eating beaks. So if you go to the Himalayas, then you might find some cross beaks, so you will be able to see them. Similarly, fruit eating, we have hornbills and we have barbets. The contrast is both are frugivore birds, but then you will see the beak of one bird being very small, but the beak of the hornbill being very long and large. So basically, this is to avoid competition in the canopy. So the birds that have a smaller beak, they will stand on the hard branches, which are very strong and can take the weight. And however, the hornbills don't want to compete with all these birds, so they have a very long beak. So they can stand on the hard branches, but then they can reach on the delicate fruits in the delicate branches using this long and strong beak. So these are some very interesting adaptations that you will be able to observe. And because of these adaptations, they are performing these functions. Otherwise, some of the fruits at the tip of those canopy, where they have very delicate branches, they will not be able to consume by others, and they would just rot and fall. So in order to avoid that, they have this particular adaptation so that they perform that function of seed dispersal for various flora. Now, one other function that is left out is the enriching soil. So like I said earlier during the feeding slide, I did mention that they have a very high metabolism. So since they eat a lot and they are converting that food into energy, there is also waste products generated inside their body. So they have to excrete a lot as well. So I mean, if you have pigeons roosting on your building, you can understand what is happening. I have a lot of people, when they get to know that I work on birds, they always come and ask me, I have a lot of pigeons coming up on my building and they're dirtying the place. So is there any way I can get rid of them? This is basically because birds have a higher metabolism. They have to excrete very often as well. So unlike other organisms, they excrete uric acid, which provides nutrients to the soil and performing soil enrichment. So this is also a very important function. And when I say this, I would like to mention a particular example which happened in a village near Shimoga, where there was a farmer who could not afford the pesticides and the insecticides. So he was basically poor, and then he had a field where he was growing certain crops, and then he could not afford for these pesticides. So what he did was he carried food along with him, and then he was trying to kill the insect by himself. And you can imagine that it's a very tedious job, and it's not practically possible. But then he did not have any other option, and he was doing that. But one day what happened is that there was some food left over, and he discarded that by the side of his field. And looking at that, certain egrets came by. They ate the food that he had discarded, and then they also saw the pests being in his farm, because in the other farms people were using more of pesticides. These pests had swarmed into his farm, so that was an added disadvantage for him, where because he was not using and others were using it, those pests moved from their farms and came here because it was more organic. Okay, so he had a much bigger problem, and these birds, when they saw the pest, they started eating them. And this excretion also happened when they were eating a lot of insects. They also kept excreting, and that gave wonderful fertilizers to the plants. and that year his yield considerably improved. And looking at that, some of the farmers started copying his mechanism, where he was every day bringing an additional box of rice along with him and then discarding it at the side of the field so that every day birds come in. So others also in that village started copying him and then started carrying 2 boxes, one for themselves and one for birds, which invited more birds. And most of those farmers in that village are doing organic farming today because they have a relationship with the birds. So you can see how it helps plants by enriching the soil through excretion. Now, finally, what I mentioned in the beginning, yesterday was World Environment Day, and this year's theme, like Bharat mentioned, is Beat Plastic Pollution. And these birds have been showing us exactly what we have been doing. We have been discarding plastics everywhere, and they have been collecting it for various purposes. Some of the birds have used plastic covers as nesting area. And you can see in these pictures that they have used it as a nesting material because the insulation is better. So it shortens the incubation time. And then one of the species here, you can also see them, which was using flowers and colorful leaves and fruits for decorating the nest to attract the female. They are now using plastic because if they use flowers, it normally would fade out, or the color would be lost and it starts rotting in a few days. And he will have to clean it continuously and then bring in fresh flowers. But here he is using plastic as an advantage because he is decorating the entire area with blue color plastic, and then he's trying to invite the female and be impressed with his decoration. So they are indirectly stating to us not to discard plastic and to use it wisely, like how they are using it efficiently. So I think all of us can take a pledge of reducing the single-use plastics and refusing to use plastic wherever alternative is available as of now. And where it is not available, if you can be creative enough to come up with an alternative, it would be wonderful. And also you can talk about it to the wider audience so that more people start using the alternative options that are available, which could lead to sustainable development. So I thank you all for patiently listening to me, and I hope the session has been insightful towards how the birds play an important role in maintaining a healthy ecosystem. So I think now we can wind up, and if there are any questions, I would be happy to take them.
Thank you, Riju. I request a participant to share their questions. If you have any questions, you can post here, or you can unmute yourself and ask the questions to Vrijulal. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask Riju. You can unmute yourself and you can ask question. Okay, there is a appreciation for Viju. It was very informative and excellent talk with wonderful images. So,
thank you so much. I hope whoever has been a part of this session would be starting to observe birds and then observe these wonderful behaviors that we spoke about, and then more than what I spoke about also.
Okay, there is a question from Suma. Please unmute yourself and ask the question.
Good evening, Viju sir and Bharat sir. This is Suma here.
Good evening, ma'am.
Sir, I have heard your talk several times, but yes, I don't miss on listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Again and again. This is a wonderful session. And okay, if I want to, observe birds in my school premises, or if I want to engage students in any of these, whether bird observation or learning about the birds, how do I go about it, sir?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. And yes, it's a wonderful thing that you want to take this further to your students as well. So it's a very simple thing to do, that they have to be out in the nature and they have to start observing the birds. So initially they would not be able to identify the birds as they are new to it, but then having a field guide would definitely help, and field guide or hand guides, anything that will help you identify the common birds. So there are plenty available which you can download from the internet, or also you can purchase from the bookstores, or if you need some suggestions, you can definitely write to me and I would be happy to help. So with these, they can start observing the birds, and if they are regular at doing this, then definitely, like how we remember people's names, they will be able to remember the birds' names. And once they remember the names, they would be more happy to find more, and then the interest will just carry on, and you cannot imagine how far it can take them. So I am one good example of it, how I was in a different field and I started observing birds and butterflies and insects and reptiles, and how I have changed fields and come to the field of ecology, and how I have changed my career path towards ecology right now. So similarly, I see a lot of people working in the field of ecology who are not from the basic science background. So it's definitely possible and it's happening. So it's a great initiative that you want to take it to the students, and I hope you will turn a lot of young minds into ecologists.
Sure, sir. Sure, I'll definitely need your guidance, sir, on this.
Definitely, ma'am. Happy to help.
Question from Lakshmi Narayana. After that, we can take the question from Ujjaini Supla. Okay, so over to you, Lakshmi Narayana.
Sir, I have passed that course from Rishi Valley. They conducted one ornithology course.
Correct, yes.
Regarding bird study. That is, I think it will be very useful for those who are interested in bird watching. That course is very useful, sir. Correspondence course is there.
Absolutely. There are a lot of courses available from different organizations as well. So it depends on how much time you can give to this particular course. So if you want to start as a hobby, you can start it with a field guide in your hand. But if you're more serious about it, you can take up courses, learn from the experts, how it is done, how research is done, how observations are made on a particular species or a range of species, and how the documentation is made of whatever observations you have in the field, and how that is published or how that is carried forward is something that you can learn through courses. So definitely there are a lot of options available, like Sir Lakshmi Narayan mentioned. Those who are interested can definitely take it up and learn about birds. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the suggestion.
So over to you, Ujjaini Shukla.
Good evening, sir. My question is the bird are very immune to those chronic diseases that spreads all over? That was my question. Like, compared to humans, the birds are is they're very immune.
Very good evening, Ujjaini Shukla. Very good question, an interesting one. But again, with our observation, we will be able to find out that human beings, we are one species interacting with a very huge population who have similar characteristics in our body like others. However, even though we consider them as birds, like 10,000 different species we consider as birds, they are different species. And certain viruses or bacteria that infect a particular species might be completely harmless to another species. So that is why in an ecosystem, in a healthy ecosystem, the disease does not spread fast. First of all, the chances of diseases are very low. Usually, if you have seen many times, the diseases have spread from domestic birds to the wild birds rather than wild birds to domestic birds. So that is mainly because people do not maintain that places in a proper way. So there is cleanliness, and there's lack of cleanliness, because of which there are viruses and bacteria infecting the birds. And when they interact with wild birds, definitely it spreads to the wild birds, and we see a mass death that happens. And many examples are there in that way.
There is a question from Jayan Prasad. So over to you, sir.
Thank you for the wonderful session. I have a question. You mentioned about the dodo and the Calaveria major relationship. Are there any examples of birds and the species in India? Have you come across any which are species specific in terms of seed dispersal?
Very good evening, sir. Thank you for your question. In India, since the diversity of birds, we have around 1,500 different species of birds in India, and the plants support a range of birds. It's not dependent on one particular species. Instead, there are a series of birds that eat those fruits, but those frugivores, if they are not there, then definitely the species of plants also would become extinct, just like the example that I quoted for the sandalwood.
Thank you.
If we look at the Mauritius case, it's a very small island compared to India, which is much larger. And dodo bird was a flightless bird because its range was just the Mauritius island. So because of that, the diversity of birds there also was very less, and the dependency of this particular bird by the plant was very high, which caused the extinction of both the species. I mean, the flora, basically. But in India, we see a lot of diverse frugivores that are available. So if not one, there is always another one. But then that does not mean that we should not conserve the birds. All of them are important because we never know how the ecosystem, because of the anthropogenic activities, how it can degrade, how quickly it can degrade, and how many birds can actually adapt to that changing environments.
Okay, thank you, Riju. So there is one question from our earlier GSDP participant. So there are various lakes getting regenerated in Bangalore. Have you seen any positive impact on birds? So if yes, please comment. If no, can you highlight what is the need of the hour?
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that question. And I'm very happy to say that we have seen positive impacts. And one good example is the Bellanduru Lake, where once the water started filling up in 2020, we saw a lot of birds which was not seen inside Bangalore for many years. And we just don't know from where they appeared. On one fine day, we started getting calls from the local residents there, stating that we have seen certain species of birds and we want help in identification. So they sent us the pictures, and when we saw, there were different species which was not recorded in the Bangalore city for at least 8 to 10 years, and some of them for 12 to 15 years. So it's definitely happening, because if an ecosystem is rejuvenated, then definitely there is a lot of changes that happens there, like unlike before. So if the natural system is functioning properly, it can sustain a lot of variety of life, not just birds, but also other organisms. So this was one good example where Bellanduru Lake was rejuvenated, and as soon as days after the water came into the lake, we saw a lot of birds come in, because that was also the migratory season. So maybe initially in the last few years, they were flying over the same place and not choosing to drop down there or to reside there. But because they have seen that it's fresh water and the resources are available, they have got down and they have started feeding in those lakes. So definitely, yes, there are a lot of positive impacts that we are seeing with the rejuvenation of lakes.
Okay, thank you so much, Riju. I hope the participants are not having any further questions. If you have any, please unmute yourself and speak. Okay, Shravan Kumar, you have any question?
Hi, Vrijulal.
Hello, Shravan.
You have explained very keen and clearly, and your presentation is very nice with a lot of case studies.
Thank you so much.
Okay, any other specific questions? If you have any other specific questions, you can ask.
No, sir.
Okay, if there are no, okay, who is that? Yeah. Do you have any question? Who is that?
I don't know, sir. No specific questions.
Oh, okay, fine. So if there are no further question, I request Dr. TVR sir to conclude on the presentation and highlight the World Adopter Day as a individuals how we can contribute for the nature.
Yeah. Thank you, Riju, for an interesting talk. I'm sure many youngsters who have taken part will take this message forward. Certainly, the individuals like Madam Suma can do something. She should create a eco club in her school and make this bird watching.
Yes, sir. We do have
eco.
We are planning to start eco club. So I've been asking Bharat sir also if there is any program like NSIP. I'm waiting for it because when I was in previous school, I was a part of NSIP. So
yeah, you don't have to wait for NSIP or any other this one. Why don't you start? So
yes, sir, then we are also starting eco club. We are also starting.
Then we will help you out. Okay, I am sure Riju and our group will certainly chip in and we will help you out. That's not an issue. But I would suggest you to start a eco club. Talk to your principal. Start a eco club and plan for an orientation program. And have a kind of every Saturday for a month or this one, 4 Saturdays. Riju can be a resource person and he can help you out. Then once you have a first level of the youngsters taking the thing, then those the students can become a mentor and then they can train the juniors in the school. And of course, Riju will continue to be the person mentor in this one, so that he would be available online. You can the students have any doubts, they can. They interact with him. Okay.
Sure, sir. Yes.
Since you have shown the interest, probably you plan the thing, and if require anything, you can get back to us. We will certainly help you out on this plan because we need the youngsters to take this message forward. When I interact with the people, I see a lack of knowledge in the society. Probably putting the seeds of this knowledge in the young brain will certainly help. Okay. And we need to have more and more youngsters who the care for our country. Certainly the question on Belandur Lake is again another interesting thing. The way the birds came there after lake is not rejuvenated yet. But the moment we removed the contamination and the fresh water came in 2020, we saw the Okay. Now coming to the day, we have been talking about the Environment Day. Of course, we
take it up, sir. I'll take Eco Club. I'll start Eco Club as soon as.
Yeah. And as Bharat rightly pointed out, the current year theme is the Beat Plastic. Unfortunately, plastic has got into our system so much. People think that without plastic they cannot live. I mean, today's generation, I see they leave their parents, but they don't give up the plastic. But they need to understand certain things. When we use plastic, there are chemicals which gets into our food. BPA, the phenol, this one, or the dioxin get into our system. These are all carcinogen. The instances of cancer going up in the region, or the kidney failures going in the thing, these are all because of the contaminant that is getting into the food. The recent study in the published in the Nature brings out that linkages, the plastic to the, they found the plastic, the residues in the tissues of the fish. And of course, Netherlands scientists have said that the bloods of the humans also have the plastic. These are quite worrying. These chemicals getting into our food chain, certainly there is going to create a chaos and we will have more and more unhealthy population. So one is, let us stop using the plastic as much as possible. Let us at least stop using the plastic bottles and polythene bags, the single-use plastic. If you make up the decision, it's not difficult. And, we have been organizing the events, and some events there are 800 to 1,000 people. We never use the plastic. We use the steel plates as well as the bags which are environmental friendly. So if there is a will, there is a way to control these things, and that's where we have to be to take the message forward. And also the plastic, as there is the phenomena called photo degradation. With that, it converts into the microplastic or the nanoplastic. That is where it gets into our food chain. And of course, it is also getting choked in the animal gut, and leading to the starvation and the birds dying, or the animals suffering because of that. All these are because of the irresponsible human beings. To responsible behavior, we need to give them environmental knowledge. That is where this kind of the talk from experts like Vrijulal, it certainly helps in bringing awareness in the public. So of course we have circulated this in the wider section of the society. So I see that the children have not taken part in the today's presentation. I am happy to see Hamsa in the audience, but of course she didn't ask the question today. I don't know. Usually she used to pose some question. So I think she should pose some question to Riju, so that we will know that whether the message has reached the destination. So Hamsa, you have any question?
Not yet, sir. I'll think about it, sir.
No. Your age is the one which says that can pose a question that will make Riju to think and make us also to think. So you people should pose a question at the right age. Then certainly you will understand the concept.
Okay, sir.
You want to ask any question? Okay.
I'm not sure, sir. I didn't get a question right now.
Okay, you send a mail to the Riju. Some challenging question you ask him. Okay. So he will certainly respond to that. Okay. And also the Hamsa, you are in Calaveria Vidyalaya. You talk to your teacher and plan to organize the environment day in your school. So maybe a talk by Riju will certainly help. The way the Riju communicates, the children also will get some knowledge and they will get excited. Then we will see more and more KV youngsters hanging around in the campus with the camera and the studying the birds. That is what is required. Today I don't see not many youngsters from KV are they doing the bird watching in IISc campus. Though IISc campus is next to the KV, I hardly see the youngsters coming to the campus. Probably I think you should take a lead now. You should they make your school to organize an event so that sensitize your classmates also. I hope that's all right to the Riju. Riju, once again, thank you for your very interesting talk. And probably if the people like Suma come forward, we will plan for the program also and see how we can take it forward. So thanks for the interesting talk. Okay, over to Bharat.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Good evening to you.
Thank you one and all for your active participation. So on behalf of IISc-EIACP and Soaring Sparrows Foundation, I thank Riju for sharing his vast knowledge on birds and also his field knowledge. So with this, we are ending the session. I request everyone to subscribe to our channel. The link has been shared in the chat box. So please subscribe to our EWRG channel so that you will get the notification about the coming webinars. So we conduct series of webinars under the live theme as well as other environmental initiative. So with this, we are ending the session. Thank you one and all.
Yeah, Bharat, you ask Riju to be around. When all others goes up, maybe we can just talk to him.
Sure.
Sure, sir. I'm here.
Okay. Now I'm just waiting for the people to log out so that three of us can discuss. Okay.